Hey there, fellow knowledge seekers, and welcome back to the NOSR Webs podcast, the show that takes you on a deep dive into the most fascinating corners of the world. And trust me, you are going to want to stick around for this one. We're about to take a trip down memory lane and explore what would have happened if you, yes, you, had invested just $100 in Bitcoin back in 2012. Spoiler alert. We're talking life-changing amounts of money. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, don't forget to check out the amazing offers in the links below. You won't regret it. Okay, let's get the deep dive rolling. Let's rewind back to 2012. Remember those days?
Well, back then, Bitcoin was still this new kid on the block, a bit of a digital mystery that most people hadn't even heard of. It certainly didn't have the star power it does today.
Yeah, it's hard to believe now, right? I mean, everyone and their grandma seems to have an opinion on Bitcoin these days, but back then it was definitely more of an underground thing, almost like a secret society.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that in 2012, Bitcoin was trading at an average price of just $5.27, a steal rate. You practically could have bought a pizza with a Bitcoin. Oh, maybe not a whole pizza, but definitely a slice. But even then, the price was as unpredictable as, well, let's just say a roller coaster ride. By the end of the year, it had already jumped to $13.30.
Talk about a wild ride.
Yeah.
I guess even in its early days, Bitcoin had a flair for the dramatic. Okay, so let's do some quick math here. If you had invested $100 at that average price of $5.27, you would have snagged yourself a cool 18.96 Bitcoins.
And if you had the patience of a saint and held on to those Bitcoins until the end of 2012, your $100 investment would have already grown to a tidy $252.68. Not a bad return for just sitting back and watching the crypto magic happen, right?
That's almost triple your money in just a year. I mean, I wish I had a time machine right about now.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on to your hats because we're about to jump into the future. Fast forward to today, 2024, and Bitcoin is currently basking in the spotlight at around, drumroll please, $98,000.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? If we do the calculations, your initial $100 investment would now be worth a jaw-dropping $1,860,080.
Wait a minute, did you just say over $1 million? From just $100?
Mm.
Okay, someone passed me the smelling salts. I think I'm about to faint. Seriously though, what in the world happened? What fueled this astronomical rise?
Well, a bunch of things came together to create this perfect storm for Bitcoin. First off, we saw a massive surge in adoption. Companies and institutions finally started to take Bitcoin seriously, accepting it as a legitimate form of payment and investment. It wasn't just the playground for tech geeks anymore.
Yeah, I remember when Tesla started accepting Bitcoin back in the day, it felt like Bitcoin had finally arrived.
Exactly. That kind of mainstream validation was a game changer. It brought Bitcoin into the public eye and sent a signal that it was here to stay.
And then there's the whole limited supply thing, right? Like
Yeah.
a digital gold rush, but instead of nuggets, it's lines of code.
Absolutely. With only 21 million Bitcoins ever going to exist, that built-in scarcity created a sense of value and urgency, especially as demand started to skyrocket.
It's like owning a piece of a limited edition masterpiece.
Precisely. And let's not forget the power of the hype machine. Positive news trends, even a single tweet from a certain tech mogul could send the price of Bitcoin soaring.
Oh yeah, remember that time Elon Musk tweeted about Dogecoin? It was chaos.
That's another story altogether, but you're right, market sentiment played a huge role in Bitcoin's journey. It was this potent cocktail of factors that catapulted Bitcoin from an obscure digital currency to the financial phenomenon it is today.
Okay, I have to admit this is all incredibly exciting, but let's get real for a second. There had to be some bumps along the way, right? Bitcoin's journey couldn't have been all smooth sailing.
You're absolutely right. While the potential rewards have been nothing short of astronomical, Bitcoin's journey has definitely had its share of twists and turns. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we've all heard those stories about people losing their shirts in the crypto market. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the risks. What are some of the things that could have tripped up even the savviest Bitcoin investors?
Well, for starters, Bitcoin's volatility is legendary. Its price can swing wildly in both directions, sometimes within hours. It's a bit like riding a bucking bronco. You never quite know which way it's going to jump next.
Okay, that definitely sounds a bit intense. So I guess you need a strong stomach and nerves of steel to play in this game.
Right.
But volatility isn't the only thing to worry about, right?
Right. There's also the ever-changing regulatory landscape. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to handle this whole cryptocurrency thing. New laws and regulations could have a major impact on Bitcoin's future, for better or worse.
It's a bit like the Wild West out there, with everyone trying to stake their claim and establish the rules of the game.
Exactly. And speaking of the Wild West, let's not forget about the security risks. The crypto world is unfortunately a magnet for hackers and scammers. They're constantly coming up with new and creative ways to try to steal your precious Bitcoins.
I've heard some horror stories about people losing their entire Bitcoin fortunes to hackers. It's enough to make you want to keep your money under your mattress.
It's definitely a valid concern. That's why it's crucial to take security seriously and use reputable exchanges and wallets to store your crypto.
So it's not just about picking the right coins, it's also about protecting your investment from the bad guys.
Absolutely. And then there's the issue of market manipulation, which can be more prevalent in a less regulated market like crypto. Big players with deep pockets can potentially influence prices, making it harder for everyday investors to make informed decisions.
So it's a bit like a poker game where you might not know if the other players are bluffing or playing with a stacked deck.
That's a great analogy. It highlights the importance of doing your own research and not just blindly following the hype or the crowd.
Okay, so we've talked about the incredible potential of Bitcoin, the factors that led to its explosive growth, and the very real risks that come with the territory. But what I think everyone's really wondering is, what does the future hold for Bitcoin? Is it going to continue its upward trajectory, or will it come crashing back down to earth?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or should I say the multi-million-dollar question?
Touché. So spill the beans. What's your crystal ball telling you?
Well, if I had a crystal ball that could predict the future of Bitcoin, I'd probably be sipping cocktails on a private island right now. But in all seriousness, the future of Bitcoin is uncertain. There are so many factors that could influence its price and adoption in the years to come.
So it's a bit like trying to predict the weather. You can look at all the data and make educated guesses, but ultimately, Mother Nature has her own plans.
Precisely. But there are some key trends and developments that are worth watching closely.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, regulation is definitely a big one. As governments around the world continue to grapple with how to regulate cryptocurrencies, their decisions will have a major impact on Bitcoin's future. We could see more clarity and stability, which could attract more institutional investors, or we could see stricter regulations that could stifle innovation and growth.
It's a bit like a game of chess, with governments and regulators making strategic moves that could make or break Bitcoin's kingdom.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's the issue of scalability. As more people use Bitcoin, the network can become congested, leading to slower transaction times and higher fees.
So it's kind of like a highway during rush hour. The more cars on the road, the slower the traffic moves.
Exactly. And that's a problem if Bitcoin wants to become a truly mainstream form of payment. Fortunately, developers are working on solutions to improve scalability, such as the Lightning Network.
Okay, so there's hope for a smoother ride in the future. But what about competition? I mean, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency on the scene, but now there are thousands of others vying for attention and market share.
That's right. It's a crowded and competitive landscape out there. Some of these newer cryptocurrencies offer faster transaction times, lower fees, or unique features that Bitcoin doesn't have.
It's like the Wild West of finance, with new digital gold rush towns popping up all the time.
Indeed. And just as some towns thrived while others faded away, some cryptocurrencies will succeed while others will inevitably fall by the wayside.
So it's survival of the fittest in the crypto jungle.
You could say that. And the factors that determine success are complex and constantly changing. It's a dynamic and exciting space to watch, that's for sure.
Well, this has certainly been an eye-opening journey into the world of Bitcoin. From its humble beginnings to its meteoric rise, it's a fascinating story of innovation, speculation, and, let's be honest, a fair bit of luck. It really is a fascinating story. And honestly, it's still being written right now as we speak.
Yeah.
So after taking this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin, what does it all mean for you, dear listener? What are the key takeaways from this roller coaster ride?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that Bitcoin and the whole cryptocurrency world, they represent a major shift in how we think about finance. It's a decentralized digital universe. It plays by its own rules outside the traditional systems we're used to.
It's like stepping through a portal into an alternate financial reality, where the possibilities are endless, but also where the risks are just as real.
Exactly. And while there are definitely some things to be cautious about, as we've discussed, there's also this incredible potential for innovation and growth. It's a space worth keeping an eye on, even if you're not quite ready to jump in with both feet.
So it's like watching a high-stakes poker game unfold, knowing that the rules are still being written and the stakes are getting higher every hand.
That's a good way to put it. But remember, in this game, knowledge is your most valuable chip. The more you understand about Bitcoin, the technology behind it, the things that can make its price go up or down, the better prepared you'll be to make smart decisions.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about understanding the game, learning the strategies, and being aware of the risks.
Absolutely. And that's where doing your research and taking advantage of resources like those amazing offers in the links below, that can make all the difference.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this right now, and they're totally intrigued by Bitcoin. But they're also feeling a little overwhelmed by all this information. What's one piece of advice you'd give them to get started?
Start small. That's my biggest piece of advice. Don't feel like you need to invest a huge chunk of your savings right away. Dip your toes in the water, learn as you go, and gradually increase your exposure as you become more comfortable with how things work.
It's like learning to swim. You don't start by diving headfirst into the deep end. You get used to the water and practice your strokes and build up your confidence over time.
Exactly. Take your time, be patient, and don't let the fear of missing out cloud your judgment. Remember, this isn't a race, it's a marathon.
Wise words, my friend. Wise words. Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of our Bitcoin bonanza. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of digital gold, and that you've come away with some valuable insights, and maybe even a little bit of that crypto fever.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you. And remember, the world of cryptocurrency is constantly changing. So stay curious, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be a part of writing the next chapter in Bitcoin's story.
And speaking of writing the next chapter, don't forget to check out those amazing offers in the links below. You might just find the perfect opportunity to start your own Bitcoin adventure. Thanks for joining us on the NOSR Webs podcast, and until next time, keep diving deep.